What's up, guys? This is Ray. Welcome to Asian Filmist, and we're here to talk about the 2018 Japanese movie Louder. Can't hear what you're singing, Wimp. Or at least that's what I think the title is in translated to English from Japanese. In Japanese, it's a pretty long title too. But this movie is directed by Miki Satoshi and stars Abe Sadao and Yoshioka Riho. And this is one of those movies where, when it came out last year, 2018, I saw the advertisements for it, but I didn't actually catch it in the cinemas. It was one of those movies that I think was a bit underhyped. It didn't really get that much buzz. Well, not from my point of view, anyways. But with the main cast, I'm a fan of Abe Sadao. I like his performances generally, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Yoshioka Riho is like kind of one of the up and comers. I think she's been active for a while, but I think just more recent, the past couple of years, she's been getting more and more popular. So this movie stuck out to me. It has an interesting premise, in my opinion. And long story short, this movie is kind of wacky. It's kind of different, when I didn't know what to expect when I rented the DVD. I just knew that I wanted to watch in the cinema, but there are other movies that are happening at the same time that this was playing, so I ended up not watching it. But this movie, the story, it's about this heavy metal singer named Sin, played by Abe Sadao, and he is famous for his powerful voice that can reach like so many octaves and all that. But then one day, during a live performance, he starts spewing blood, and then he ends up running away from this gig. And the reason why he has a huge range with his voice, with his vocal cords, as well as the reason why he starts spewing blood, is because he does doping with his vocal cords. As similar to, I guess, how athletes would enhance their performances by injecting steroids into their muscles. I guess it's the same idea with Sin injecting drugs into his vocal cords. So Sin takes off from this gig, nowhere to be heard from the fans. Nobody knows where he's gone. But it turns out, while he's on the run, he encounters Fuka, who's played by Yoshioka Riho, and she's a street musician, but she's kind of strange in the sense that when she sings, it almost sounds like a whisper. Like she doesn't have any kind of powerful voice at all, and people end up just kind of laughing and walking away from her. But something else, Fuka catches Sin's eye, and he starts kind of not mentoring her, but kind of just taking her under his wing and trying to get her singing voice to come out. And this starts kind of this budding friendship, this kind of mismatched odd couple kind of pairing that leads to many shenanigans in this pretty weird movie. So I think it's a given with the premise. You have a story centered around two musicians. There's some jams in this movie. This movie is, well, it's not exactly a musical by any kind of definition, but it is a movie that features music. And the way the movie presents the music is that the movie portrays the music in a kind of comedic fashion. Like, as I said, you have Sin. He is a death metal singer. And he's way over the top, and the way he dresses, like his makeup, his costumes, is just so outlandish. It is awesome. And then you have Fuka, who kind of dresses like your average street musician. But I think as I mentioned in the synopsis, what makes her character kind of interesting is that when she sings, it's almost like she's whispering. Like it really is like over the top, like, just whispering, like in a way that she gets made fun of and her bandmates walk away from her. And it's just kind of strange and bizarre, but I guess it's what makes the movie work, in my opinion. It just gives it kind of a personality. Also, something I chalk up as positives are the performances of the two leads. As I mentioned earlier, I dig Abe Sadao and his performances. I think he generally puts on a great show, and his chemistry with Yoshioka Riho in this movie, I think it's weird. It's wacky because you have two contrasting personalities. Like, he is just loud and obnoxious, and she's not exactly loud and obnoxious, but she's not so soft-spoken either. She's just trying to like figure herself out. And the way the two interact with each other, it's so, I don't know, it's, like I keep saying, it's so over the top. Everything about this movie is so over the top. I think that's something that gives it kind of a personality, as I mentioned earlier, but it also is something that makes it one of those movies you just have to get used to along the way. If you're one for over-the-top comedy that only Japan can pull off, I think there's a lot to enjoy about this movie. Yes, going back to the way the two leads interact with each other, I thought, at first I thought it was kind of strange, but then it kind of grew into just being very entertaining. And overall, like the chemistry between the two is quite nice. And just seeing the kind of antics that Sin does in order to get Fuka's voice to come out, it's, I think it's entertaining as all hell. Everything from getting other nearby street musicians who are who are just loud and obnoxious to shut the hell up so he can hear Fuka's performance, to even just breaking into her room, and the way they react, especially during this particular scene, the way Fuka reacts to Sin invading her room, it's just so over the top. Like he bursts in, then she gets surprised, and she just keeps rolling endlessly. It's like it's almost cartoonish. But I think at first I thought it's silly. I think this is what this movie. And that's what gives this movie a lot of charm. It's just silly, and you can tell it doesn't take itself too seriously. And another thing I thought that was quite interesting is that the usage of colors with this movie, not only to just highlight different moods and like if a scene is a flashback or thing, but just to kind of give the atmosphere this kind of sense of vivid imagery. This movie uses a lot of vivid colors like that. I also thought the dialogue, it's very silly, but it's also very quick and witty. And it's given by this kind of weird, random bunch of characters who, for some reason, like the way they're designed, it's just random as all hell. Like you have Aso Kumiko, who plays a nurse with a random eye patch and a blonde wig for some reason. And then you have Fuka's, I think they're her landlords or something. They look like hippies straight out of the 70s. But, everyone is dressed pretty wacky. I kind of dig the music, especially the song that Sin comes into the movie with. I kind of dig it. But when it comes to the negatives of Louder, I'm just going to call it Louder, I thought the camera work was just more random than the characters that are featured in this movie. Like sometimes, you just get endless just moving. The camera just doesn't stay still. It could just be hovering like this, focusing on different areas of different characters, or even in the different parts of the room. But sometimes there are some scenes where the camera just randomly spins around, like so the room turns upside down and just turns into 360-degree motions for no real reason other than what it seems to just have the camera just constantly moving. I don't know why it does that. I think it's pretty jarring after a while and kind of dizzying, especially there's some scenes where the camera stays in the middle and then just kind of does 360s around the room. So you get this kind of helicopter feeling. And I don't know, it gets kind of tiresome after a while. And as I mentioned earlier, while the characters and the story itself is quite silly and quite random, I think when it comes to an overarching story, there are a lot of times where the story itself just doesn't make sense, and it's not cohesive at certain points. But I guess when you watch this movie, you gotta expect that kind of thing. But overall, what to have to say about Louder? It's weird. I think it's a unique experience. There are a lot of just really wacky and cartoony moments that I think is very unique to Japan's style of comedy. When you watch this movie, if you're a fan of those kinds of silly antics, those weird over-the-top mannerisms that they usually pull in these kinds of movies, and also very over-the-top characters who, when they talk to each other, they just spout out really quick and witty dialogue, and also being straight up loud and obnoxious, and seeing these kind of characters interact with each other. If you dig all of that, then you probably have a good time with this movie. If you're looking for something that's kind of a more cohesive, something with a more cohesive plot, this movie probably won't be for you. And because of that, I don't know, I can half recommend this movie. I think half of me likes this movie just because it's so random and weird. And also the music, as I said, also the performances by the two leads I dig. But the other half of me just couldn't really follow the story at certain times. But I think the reason why I enjoy this movie to a degree was because of all the visual gags and the colors. Like there's this one scene where they just put on a straight fireworks show. They go into like this village of sorts, and they just have giant firework bombs. I don't know what you call, like just giant bombs that when they blow up, it's just fireworks. You have random spots where just dudes are running around naked, and you see like a little black circle that's covering up the private parts, and you even just have times when they curse and the sounds just bleep out the words. So just stuff like that. It it's just really weird, random, and wacky. And half of me really digs it, half of me just can't handle it. I don't know, I guess it has to, I guess it depends on my mood, to be honest. And, I read online that a lot of people give praise to this movie. I don't know, I can see where a lot of praise comes from. But for me, it was just, I'd say it's just half and half. So yeah, I half recommend this movie. But check it out, make your own decision. If you like this style of comedy, this weird, silly, kind of almost self-aware style of bizarreness, then yeah, you might dig it. But yes, those are my thoughts on Louder. Can't hear what you're singing, Wimp. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And if you really dig my content, please know you can support Asian Films via Patreon from as little as $1. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Hope to catch you all again in the next video. Take it easy.